On another episode of Soothing Semantics. I'm your host, Rafi Pinsky. Make sure to subscribe, smash the like button, leave your comments. For all of your real estate needs in South Florida, make sure to follow Rafi the Realtor on Instagram and check out my weekly newsletter so you can stay up to date for everything real estate in the Sunshine State. Without further ado, we have a really awesome guest. I'm really looking forward to this conversation. I want to give a shout out to Tal Oren for connecting us. Make sure to follow him at the Traveling Clat on Instagram and YouTube. So that is the Traveling CLATT. He has a very impressive YouTube channel, travel videos, content on Israel, and really love the guy. I love you, bro. Thank you for making all these connections. He's made other connections in the past as well. I'm sure he'll make some in the future. I've made some for him as well. I'm really looking forward to one. Hopefully, I can connect you as well. This guy Harris Sultan, he has a very cool YouTube channel. Pakistani ex-Muslim. He's currently an atheist. Very interesting guy. I'll show you some of
Hmm.
his content as well, Barak. So, without further ado, we have Barak Schwartz, not Schwartz, but Schwartz, who is originally a resident, you said, of Boston, and you're from Boston. You have your family's from Philly and Boston. You said
Yeah, I was born in Boston. My dad's from Philly. My mom is from Connecticut.
Connecticut, right? Okay. So he goes by other Barak on Instagram and YouTube. He's built a sizable channels on both, and I imagine you're on others as well, and TikTok and
Yeah.
other.
First of all, Rafi, thanks for having me on. This is cool, and shout out to Tall. We were just talking about him a second ago. I've only known him for a couple months, really, and we've turned into not just great YouTube business partners, but really good friends. I was just with him yesterday. We talk. I think we have synergy like every single day. We at least correspond. So shout out to Tall, the traveling clat. We love him. Um, yeah, I'm on on Instagram, on YouTube, on TikTok, and I just launched my Patreon and my Discord as well. So other Barak on all of those. Yeah.
That's awesome. Okay, how's the Patreon going? It's working out little by little.
Yeah, the same approach I'm taking as we speak with YouTube is the same approach I'm going to take with Patreon. And I've really been doing this for 4.5, 5 months. I started November, December-ish, a month and a half after the 7th of October on YouTube, kind of going full
Mhm.
steam relative to what I'm doing right now. And it's the same thing I'm going to try and do with Patreon, where I'm trying to just build the foundation brick by brick. And I'd say for a launch, again, I'm new to this world, if you will, full-time creation on long form video. But I would say for the launch, it's been pretty cool to see some of the um, real like true fan subscribers on YouTube convert over. And you know, Patreon is a platform where you can build out different tiered benefits for people. And right now I just have one tier because I don't want people to feel overwhelmed by going to it and having so many different options. And I have over 20 members at the moment. More than half of those are paid members. And I have a special chat room for them on Discord, which is just accessible to those who are on Patreon. It's cool. The Discord too is also public to we have over 60 people at the moment, just building that out. So it's been fun to interact with people from all over the world, have them call in during my live streams. It's really cool. I could talk about this forever. Like it's just the community there is really cool.
That's awesome. I definitely I want to learn how to utilize Patreon because I just haven't gotten into it. That's really awesome. So yeah, man. I hope you 1 million X what you're doing. I wish you tons of success. I support what you're doing. And essentially, just for everybody listening, Barak has built a sizable channel just talking about the conflict, really showing the Israeli side, showing the Jewish side, and really giving a lot of great perspective. So just make sure to check out his content, guys. It's really great. So I wanted to get into the podcast starting out by asking you how you got into the content space. Give me a little bit of a background on you and give me an idea of what inspired you to make content.
I've been into content creation and storytelling way before I started to talk about the war on YouTube. Um, when I graduated college in 2018, I had begun doing some storytelling work with a person I found through Twitter, actually at the time. It was Twitter, who ended up being a videographer for me. We just made like fun day in the life storytelling videos about me. The story behind it and why that transpired doesn't really matter. But the point is I'd say for the past 6 or 7 years, after I came across Gary V on YouTube and Instagram, and I really went 100% and just consuming all of his content, I started to understand the power of storytelling and the power of being in front of the camera. And I've always been somebody, even pre-Instagram, pre this, I've been very comfortable in front of people. I really like being in front of crowds. I really like having a stage presence. I really like being in front of a camera. And I think that stories are very compelling. And so storytelling for me has always been, you could call it a passion. I like learning about other people, but I also like sharing things that I've been through to help provide perspective for other people that might be able to help them. And I found that over time, I did actually end up helping people, not just people who I knew personally in my own life, but people who followed me through the internet. So when I started to do storytelling stuff about my story, motivation, going after what you love, and just trying to find your purpose in life, I would hear from people sporadically on the internet, on Instagram, or over email. Those people, some of them I went to school with, and those I didn't, and they would send me some story about how they came across my stuff and decided to change this or that about their life. And that maybe it was quitting their job and going after what they love, or maybe it was, yes, deciding to move and go to that place they always wanted to. And as a result of me speaking in front of a camera. So I've always liked storytelling. I did a lot of storytelling and content the past 4 or 5 years of my life when I was in really the sports and fitness world. I come from the fitness and basketball background. I played basketball in college in America. I was injured most of my career. As a result of those injuries and being sidelined, I decided to pivot from a marketing degree, which brought me no happiness, to becoming a trainer for basketball players and help them go through healthy careers and not have to go through what I went through. And I lived in Israel when I was in first and second grade, and I did some work for Birthright Israel. So my idea after college, when I quit working in high tech and working in corporate and Big Tens and all this stuff, was to combine my passions for Israel, Zionism, and basketball. And that got me to Israel in 2019. I was working for Maccabi Tel Aviv as an assistant strength and conditioning coach with the men's team. Incredible experience. And then 3 years went by after that, and I just finished 4 years in total with 2 different teams. The other one was Ness Ziona in the first division in Israel. So I spent the past 4 years of my life working in the professional basketball setting as a trainer and building up a private business. And through all of this, was doing a lot of content on Instagram, on TikTok. I speak Hebrew fluently, so I was able to tap into the communities here in Israel. So I've been following people like Gary V, following people who have big presences on the internet, and understanding this game of social media. Now, after the 7th of October, around the 11th or 12th, I flew home. My family's in the States. I'm here alone. I didn't feel too comfortable being here, understandably so at the time. I went home, and I didn't have a return ticket back to Israel. I knew I was going to come back. It was just a matter of when. And every single day that I would wake up after the 12th, the 13th, I mean, I wasn't sleeping, but I would get up in the morning and my mind was not at all focused on basketball or fitness. It was solely focused on Israel. And a little bit of a personal note, we talked about this offline a little bit. I didn't get drafted into the army. I made Aliyah at the age of 25. I turned 28. I turned 29 in 2 days. So almost 4 years ago, 3.5, 4 years ago, I made Aliyah and I didn't get the call to go to the army. And I've always had a little bit of survivor's guilt with that being a thing in my life, where I'm here in Israel and all of these people go to the army, many of them, not all of them, many of them. But on the 7th, many of my friends getting drafted into the reserves, going into Gaza, or having some sort of a duty in the army. And I was back at home with my family. So when I made the decision to switch from fitness content straight to like, let me talk about something that is dearly true to my heart right now and that's important. And I saw what was being broadcasted after being in America. I started going on YouTube. And about my third or fourth video out, I remember we were celebrating my mom's birthday in New Hampshire at an Airbnb. And I put out the video at like 5 and we had dinner, and I opened it up just to check the stats at like 6. And it just took off. It like, I remember I looked at my brother, I was like, I think I just went viral. Now I went viral relative to myself, but I also did go viral for like that moment of going from like 64 views to like 4,000 and a half, 4,500 in like a matter of 60 minutes. And then I saw what was happening and I was like, okay, I have something here. So fast forward 5 months. I'm very fortunate to have an incredible mentor on YouTube whose name I'm not going to disclose for his request, but he has been instrumental in my thinking and execution. I do everything. Like
It cut out for a quick second. Just go
yep.
back 20, 15 seconds.
Yes. Did you hear the part about my brother? Me saying to him, I think I went viral.
4,000. Yeah, you pretty much cut out when you were talking about how you were at 64 views, then you went viral at about 4,500.
Yeah, I mean, I went viral. Like the video took off, and then I understood what was happening. And then fast forward 4 or 5 months, that's what I've been doing. And I did mention before that I'm extremely fortunate to have an incredibly close mentor who's a very, very large YouTuber whose name I'm not going to disclose, who has been mentoring me really almost daily. This person saw me on TikTok one day. Like he saw me doing a program I was doing in Israel on TikTok one day. He saw that it was going viral and he contacted me and thought like, let me convince this kid to go on YouTube. And so I gave a lot of credit to him, not just for that moment, but also for a lot of the success that I'm seeing. Because when it comes to an X's and O's standpoint of executing really good content on YouTube, a lot of the thinking behind a title or a thumbnail or the first 5 seconds or even the concept, a lot of that is with him. I do all of the filming, I do all of the script writing, I do all the editing, and I do all of the producing. But the brains behind it, it's important. And I think that other people should understand that it's not always just one person. In this case, it's definitely not just Barak. I do the execution, but I call it a very, very cool team with me. Tall too is somebody who just feeds me inspiration and stuff. So sorry, that was a long-winded answer, but that's how I have been involved with the content creation. And I think it's important just to provide that context because it didn't just start on October 12th when I went home. I don't think I can hear you.
I've been sorry about that. I had it on mute. I have my channel for about 3.5 years now, and it's growing. It's a little tough because it's long form. It's podcasting, but if you have any thoughts on what I could do, that would be really great.
I would love to look at it like look, and then we
Mhm.
can, yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
I mean, I know there are things I know already, so we'll talk about it off camera. Like we'll get to know each other even more, and I'll give you my insights. But I'm very confident it'll continue to grow. It'll compound. Uh, so that's really awesome. So now going into the content on Israel, what has been your experience? Are you getting a ton of death threats? Are you getting a lot of support from people that initially hated Israel and didn't know much about it? What comes to mind right away when you think about the content and the responses and reactions you've been getting?
The beginning was, this whole time it's been a combination of lots of support from people who support Israel. They're not all just Jewish. In fact, many of them are not Jewish. Coincided with a lot of a lot of death threats, a lot of really nasty stuff, which they don't bother me. Like Johnny Pants 449 sitting in Idaho in his basement writing stuff, to me personally, it doesn't bother me. I actually really like it. It helps the algorithm. It
For
pushes
sure.
my video and it
Especially when you're
creates.
going at it, when you have a pro-Israel guest and a pro-Palestinian guest, and they're just at each other's teeth, and there's the back and forth. You're like, perfect, keep it up.
You want that. You want that as a content creator. You want that. Of course, if it crosses the line into something really, really nasty and really evil, and like there's I remove it. I comb through my comment section regularly. One, I reply to my comments, but two, I want the people who come to my channel, even if they're returning subscribers or viewers, to feel comfortable. Leaving a comment in an area where there's clearly a lot of hostility can also refrain somebody from wanting to, one, drop a comment, or two, maybe continue watching that channel. It's a real thing. But
Mm-hmm.
if it is a death threat, typically I'll take it down. But yes, I do get things all the time. I the evolution of the people who I'm speaking to has also changed. It was initially to like older people, and like my demographic was like 55, 60 years old plus, and it's changed now into a younger generation, which I actually want. I want to speak to sort of the whole spectrum. Um, it is important for me to uplift, share the truth to those who do support Israel, especially those who don't have access to the media that we have here inside of the Middle East in Hebrew and in Arabic. And I take a lot of that stuff and I put it out into English and I show what's not being shown on mainstream. However, the the goal is to be able to reach people that are in the middle or don't agree with me. Because at the end of the day, me sharing more about what you already know just reinforces more about what you already know. I need to
Right.
talk to the people who don't know much or think that they do and they don't, in my opinion.
Mhm.
It's not as easy to reach those people. And that's because one, many of them choose intentionally not to entertain themselves to this kind of content. Because when you go to my channel, it's very clear that I do have a bias towards Israel for good reasons, in my opinion. And number two, not all the time my kind of content gets pushed. And I'm not making any sort of excuse for being shadow banned or muted, but I have experienced relative to other channels that are saying something very different, much less um, engagement, much less push, much less in the algorithm. That also could be on behalf of me not doing a good job at putting a good video out. The point is like, I ideally would like to be able to be in front of more people who want to challenge me. And I can tell you, and I have screenshots, people who have been in the middle that have come across my stuff and have sent me like a message 3 or 4 weeks after, left a comment by saying, 3.5 weeks ago, I was really like pro-Palestine, anti-Israel. And after coming across your channel, going through your stuff, I've shifted my view. I had a viewer last night send me a 3-page Google Doc on Discord about his entire transformation from being pro-Palestine to pro-Israel. And I like, it's a full Google Doc. It's a small paper. And you can imagine for me
I would
as a
love to
YouTuber,
read that if that's okay.
yeah, I'll ask him. You can imagine for me as a YouTuber, this is the analogy I'm gonna make. I don't know how to come up with a better one. I didn't serve in the army and I don't have a gun around my shoulders and I can't go into the territories and help neutralize and take out bad and evil people. What I can do is use my words and my education and my ability to spread information on the internet as best as I can. And when something like that happens, not me talking to a very, very pro-Israel Jewish community, but me talking to somebody who decided to shift their perspective, that win to me is the equivalent of a soldier in the IDF neutralizing a terrorist. That for me is the biggest win that I could probably accomplish because I've shifted that person's mentality and stance with my words.
Mhm.
So I take a lot of pride in those moments, and they don't happen as often as the other ones where it's like support from pro-Israel people, which also obviously makes me feel great. But yeah, that's about it.
You're doing something that's very difficult to do. I give you a lot of credit. I'd like to think that I'm in my own way. I'm doing this. I'm looking to do the same thing, right? We have different, our channels are maybe a little different. Yours isn't necessarily a podcast, and mine isn't necessarily formatted in the same way. But I'm also looking to find those people that don't necessarily have a pro-Israel attitude or a pro-Palestinian attitude. They may
Mhm.
kind of be somewhere in the middle. They might naturally be leaning to more of the Palestinian side, and I can give them a perspective and articulate my points in a way that makes them say, "Wow, I've never really thought of that before." And you really are fighting a fight. You are, and it's something you should be very proud of. It first off, most people, even if they had the ability to articulate your points, wouldn't have the confidence to go and put themselves out there. And you
Mhm.
are also putting your life at risk because the larger you get, the more the more prone you are to dangers. You may
Mhm.
go and travel to Uruguay, and little do you know, God forbid, there may be somebody that has heard of you and doesn't like you. You're putting your name out there, and you're
Mhm.
very proudly saying that you're pro-Israel as a Jew. That's not an easy feat. That's not something that every person can or is willing to do. So I give you a ton of credit, bro. I'm proud of you, man, and I'm happy you're doing what you're doing.
I really appreciate that, and I'll say, um, I, I I was just thinking about what you just said because I am Tall and I are considering we are in the early phase of exploring the idea of us going around Europe and doing some work. And he and I have both put ourselves. By the way, Tall is 252,000 subscribers. He's been on YouTube for more than a decade. This guy's
Mhm.
in. He's in there. I'm not, but I have gotten a pretty significant amount of traction so far. And I think about that a lot. I even think about the fact about me going to visit my family in the summer if I do. And feeling a little bit more watched than I normally have been. Here in Israel now I'm noticing it's not a bad thing. I am getting stopped in the street now. I don't have a very significant amount of viewers from Israel. Most of my most of my subscribers are North America, the UK, Australia, Africa, all over Europe. They're all over the world, but Israel isn't like a hotspot for me. But now that I'm getting stopped here, I do think that the sense of safety and security is something that I've been considering, because I've been back in Israel since January. And I don't have anything really to worry about when it comes to me walking down the street here and seeing other Israeli people who might be following me on YouTube. So but when I go back to that moment of when I decided to put myself out there, I'd already put myself out there on the internet, but not in this capacity. And when I decided to do that, it wasn't even it wasn't a question. Like, I'm willing to lose all of the followers and friends and acquaintances that I lost, willing to jeopardize my, public safety, if you will, just like you mentioned, if it means me standing up for something like this. And because this is true to me, I said in the beginning. So I give credit to people like you and myself and Tall and all those people who still, after almost tomorrow will be 7 months, are still talking about this and still trying to do what they can. Because you're in the States too, so it's very different for you to put yourself out there the same way it is for me in Israel. It's a totally different game.
Florida, so that, thank God for now. If you know about Florida, they're very. It's not like New York and California. Like the government here is quite pro-Israel,
Interesting.
and they don't tolerate a lot of the college nonsense. Like if you've heard of DeSantis, Governor DeSantis, he's amazing. So it's quite safe here. There's a lot of Jews here you can carry here. It's much better to live here than probably anywhere else in America, maybe other than Texas. It's probably the best place to be as a Jew right now in America. So hopefully that stays that way. But yeah, it takes a lot. And I think the Europe idea is a great idea, especially going to England, especially going to France. You go to Paris as a proud Jew and walk around. I mean, that takes balls. I would do that with you guys. It's something I'm perfectly happy to do it. I just, even more so, not more so, but in addition to putting your life at risk, you're also jeopardizing potential business opportunity. I understand that, I'm a real estate agent. I understand that there might be clients who are pro Palestine who don't like my views, that might see my YouTube channel, that might say, I don't want to work with this guy. And I learned from some entrepreneurs that I'm a very big fan of, that you can either be somebody who steps into the arena of life, or you can worry and you can tiptoe around and walk on eggshells and worry that anything you might say might trigger the wrong person. You might lose opportunity. My attitude is if you're very serious about what you believe in, and you believe that you have something to offer to protect the people you care about, in this case, Jewish people, and really anyone who's a fan of democracy, free speech, and all that jazz, I'm okay with losing some opportunity, because I believe that the people that really support what I do will be such big supporters. I'll earn back whatever business I may have lost. It'll benefit me 10 times all of the losses I may have gotten. So for me, it's just not even a question. I'm not going to change how I'm doing things. Thank God I get a lot of support for it, and I'm going to keep doing what I do. My channel, I think, is too small. I haven't gotten any death threats yet. We'll see. We'll see what happens. I'm sure as I get bigger, but I'm not really concerned. I don't know, man. I'm not worried about it.
I couldn't have said it any better myself. The other thing is, like, I have a lot of pride in the where I always stay true to myself. Like I'm not gonna hide my Judaism on the internet because it's the right thing to do for a long-term business plan. No, I agree with what you just said. I also agree with this is good karma for people like us. The light has shined for me. It's shining for you. Like, this is the right thing to do. And I'll tell you, this entire arena, which is quite different from fitness and basketball and training athletes and all that stuff. This arena, the sensitive one, has shown me a very different sense of reward, much quicker, but sometimes feels to me way more fulfilling. And that is more valuable to me. And I'm willing to do this work at the expense of the other stuff that you just mentioned, because I know at the end of the day, when this is all said and done, who's on the right side of history.
Right.
That's how I feel.
Yeah, and it takes a lot, because there's a lot of people that think that we're on the wrong side. So it takes a lot. Yeah.
That's why I feel motivated to do this more and more every day I wake up, for that exact reason. for that exact reason.
For sure. So just giving a quick idea, you and I are on the same page. I don't even have to get into it. What what are some things that you would want to tell people to make it, because this is not an hour long. We can talk for hours on this, but to summarize the best you can, what do you think a lot of people say on these college campuses, all these woke progressives, what do you think they're not understanding about the conflict in the last 75 years? And what are points and ideas that you've been able to bring to light that have helped to change their perspective, do you think? I know it's a
Mm.
bit of a broad question. I can try to narrow it down a little more, but what comes to mind?
That's dense.
Yeah,
I'll try to do the best I can.
I do that. I do that.
I'll try to do the best I can. So I
Okay.
apologize if this ends up being a long rant and I veer off. I tend to do that sometimes, but hopefully this will come full circle in a minute. Let's start with the people on campus in America. 99.9% of them, I believe, have never been to the Middle East, have never been to Israel, and don't have many good friends, people that have been able to show them the way of life of being somebody who is from and raised in the Middle East, whether it's a Jew or a Muslim. I think many of them have acquaintances and have been around those, maybe know a little bit about the religion, what a kippah is, what a kafia is, but it kind of ends there. So let's start with that prerequisite. Let's start with that baseline of lack of knowledge, lack of understanding from a cultural standpoint, from a religious standpoint. Forget the politics, the geopolitical part of the Middle East. They don't know much. A lot of these are Americans. I'm just talking about North America right now. Americans, many of which have never left America. I know lots of these people personally. So understanding the psyche of the person that is shouting for a ceasefire, free Palestine, or that Israel's committing a genocide. We need to understand who these people are before we talk about why we think that they're wrong. And the far majority of them are very similar to anybody that gets excited about a trending topic, something in the world, something in the news, something that gets them excited, something that gets them fired up and easy to support. Why easy to support? It's very easy to support hatred against Jews. It's always been the case. Anti-Semitism has always been a very easy thing to support. It's always been the right thing to support. It's always been Israel is in the West portrayed as the wrong person in that side of the region. So there is this preconceived notion to many of these people who, to begin with, I'll remind you, don't know much. And when they go and see something that happens, this amplification of war in the Middle East, such as the October 7th massacre, when they open their TikTok channel, when they open their CNN, when they open their Fox, their news, they're not actually receiving to them a reflection of what is going on. They're receiving to them, one, a very different narrative, but two, an inability to dive deeper into the context as to why it's happening. So it stops there. It stops with a headline. It stops with a TikTok video, or it stops with very, very, very ill-planned, brilliant propaganda by the enemy. It caused what we are seeing now, which is the far majority of people and all of these college students, these encampments, choosing to rise up, to get excited, to be cool, to be the people who put the mask on, be the people who are aggressive and angry and lighting torches and burning stuff and turning into Gotham City, be these people, because now is the time to attack. Now is the time to defend. That now is the time to help a fight for freedom. That I lay that out because we need to understand that I do, especially, none of the people that watch my YouTube videos are any of those people. Never. Those are never any of the people that are going to watch your stuff either, or Tal. They won't do it. They see who you are. They see who I am. They see who Tal is. They see who Rudy Rahman is. Any of these people. I don't know if you saw the video of Rudy yesterday in America at Georgetown or George Washington, whatever. They
For sure.
don't, there's nothing. There's no debate. There's nothing. They don't have anything to say.
You
So
know what
number one,
though? I think just to quickly interject, I love what Rudy has been doing for years, way before he went into Gaza, way before October 7th. I love what he does. Uh, I don't think that doing that is so beneficial to change their minds. I think it helps more to show Jews to be more outspoken. I think that is going to be the best outcome for what he's doing. But these idiots are not going to change their minds. He may be able to get to a few of them. I think in the moment he's really able to light a spark. But I think those few guys, let's say those Palestinian Americans that he talks to, and he gives them hugs, they go back off into their little group. The little group convinces them again, nah, don't listen to that Jew. He doesn't know what he's talking about. And they're like, yeah, I don't know what he was thinking. It's this cognitive dissonance. It's 99% of the time a waste of time. I think it's just good for the Jews to see that, hey, don't be so scared of these college kids. Get out there, say what you need to say, do what you need to do, be involved. We can't keep hiding all the time. That's what Rudy's a very big proponent of that. I love that he's like that. I happen to disagree with him on this kind of utopian idealistic, like let's hug and kiss and everything. I don't know how much I agree with that. It's not, meaning I would like that in theory, but we can get into that a little more. I'm hopefully getting on a big podcast. I don't want to jinx it, but I just have to find someone to debate with. But I was invited onto it. I'm hoping we're going to be able to organize it soon, and that'll hopefully get me in front of a nice audience. But I don't think that this, before we can hug and make up and everything, they need to respect us and accept that we like it or not. And back to you, but that's really the premise of all this. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, you hit the nail on the head. Like Rudy, the people at that college that are saying the things they're saying and surrounding Rudy are no different than the people I just described to you, and are no different than Johnny Pants 559 in Idaho, and none of them know anything, but
Right.
they see the next university next to the state, or over there on the East Coast, or over there on the West Coast, or they see a new headline, or they see this, and they don't have to dive deep. It's just like more fuel to their engine. And then they see a picture of the Houthi rebels holding a sign showing their solidarity for all these American students protesting. And so they're like, oh, wow, guys, they hear us overseas. Let's keep doing it. It's all these people, and you're right, by the way, those people are not going to listen to Rudy. That's not the way to do it. Rudy, I think, also understands that. Rudy didn't go there to say, let's go convince all these people. Rudy went there to show more truth about who they are. He exposed them, not that we already needed more exposure, but it does give a little bit of uplifting and I think confidence for Jewish people. I think in any event, what he's doing is important, but you're right. None of those. Can we swear on this?
Rudy knows that. Rudy knows that he's not going to change their minds necessarily. I support massively that he does that, massively, because what it means, and this is, and I'm such a big supporter of him doing this, is because Jews need to get out there. I'm not saying they need to go and set their own rallies every day and leave work and you know forget about their lives and their day to day. But throughout history, we are so used to hiding and waiting for the storm to pass. We need to step into it. Everybody else is waving pitchforks and screaming and carrying on. We need to get in there and walk out the door with our chests out, say what needs to be said, and do what needs to be done. And it's a lot harder to combat Jews and to be aggressive toward Jews when Jews are just as willing to get out there. I'm not condoning violence. I'm saying Jews should go out and be violent. What I am saying is that we should be very willing to speak up and put ourselves out there. Super important, especially
Yeah,
outside.
I'm also not somebody who's ever going to tell not just Jewish people, Jewish students down on campus, but violence, in my opinion, is never the answer to anything. But I do want to say, and this could be an unpopular opinion, but I'm going to say it anyways. Like back in the 70s and 80s, if this was happening, like a Jewish student was walking across the quad and got blockaded by all these people, he's making a phone call to his 10 best Jewish friends or his 10 best friends, and he's walking down the quad next time. And if anyone ever dares to bother them, it's a brawl. And you know that's true. Now we're in 2024, where apparently we need to always figure out our pronouns first before we have a conversation. And then if somebody's in a fight, then we have to ask ourselves if they're mentally ill before we actually figure out that there's actually, it's totally different now.
Yeah.
So the analogy, I said this in one of my videos, is like, years ago, if you're walking down the street with your girl and some guy comes up and punches your girl in the face, what do? You beat him up and you punch him back. And nowadays, you 2024, you walk down the street with your girl, some guy comes and punches your girl in the face, what do? You ask yourself if that person's having a bad day. It's so that's where we are. And the way I want to end that is by saying, like, I've been vocal about encouraging Jewish students today across every single university campus to call their best friends so that at least they feel a little bit more, have a strength in numbers type feeling when they're walking across the quad. I'm never telling people just go punch people, but I'm telling you, man, I have a really hard time. My blood boils when I'm sitting here in Tel Aviv and I see these videos. And I've never been in a fight. I'm almost 29 years old. I've never been in a fight. I've never been punched in the face. I've never punched anyone. But they really, really, really bother me. And it's enough of intense bullying. It's more than bullying. Some of it has turned into violence. But these videos of the Jewish students who are, and these, I can't stop picturing the two kids from I think it was NYU or Columbia, and they just got cornered onto a door, and then the people went behind them, and there was really there was no room for them. It was essentially like the way I keep saying it is if you were on a satellite and you were looking down on Earth, you can see a hurricane and you see the eye of the hurricane, and that eye is just getting tighter and tighter, and that kills me. It kills me. And so I give so much credit to a lot of these college students who haven't thrown a punch, at least not from what I've seen. You got to give credit to Rudy for holding his cool. You saw the video, like, just for him to be able to stand there. I don't know what I do. So, but I do think that there's this feeling sometimes I get where even inside of Israel, especially right now with what's going on with the potential deal here of the hostage exchange and the prisoners, where sometimes like we're a little bit too soft. And that sounds crazy. Sounds a little bit crazy because the media is saying we're too aggressive. I think Israel's a little bit too soft sometimes. I think that sometimes the enemy is playing with us like children. So, and what are college students in America doing? Playing with Jewish students. That's all they're doing. It's food for them. They see them walking down the quad, food. And that grinds my gears. It bothers me.
Yeah. Yeah, the reality of war, man, is you have to accomplish the goal of war. And in our case, we need to defeat Hamas and ensure that rockets don't fall again. And to cut away all the bullshit, most Gazans support Hamas. Most Gazans would have been thrilled if October 7th turned into the destruction of Israel. Now they're crying for a ceasefire because they lost, as they lost in every other war. And we are supposed to show restraint against a group of people that would love to see us destroyed. And unfortunately, I don't want to call every Gazan civilian, what's the word I'm looking for? A belligerent, but they're pretty much mostly in support of it. Let's just call a spade here. Okay, it's one group versus another. We're enemies. Okay, would I like to be friends if it were possible? Sure. I don't have an inherent hatred for anyone. I don't inherently hate Palestinians. But after 75 years, you still have this delusional notion that you're going to defeat us and take the land instead of creating some sort of prosperity for yourselves. What did you think was going to happen? So we continue on with this problem. And even if we stop the war right now, obviously what will happen? Hamas will regroup, they'll attack us again. We're back at square one again. All the deaths on both sides were for nothing. They were in vain. And as horrible as it is to see people dying on either side, the goal needs to be accomplished. If Israel ceases the war, if they stop the war, it was a complete waste of time. They need to go through. They need to enter Rafah. They need Hamas to give up. They need Hamas to surrender. What will happen afterwards is a challenge. I also want to ask you what you think should happen going forward. I have my thoughts. They're not so nice, but I don't have this I don't have this utopian view of things. I have a very realistic view, whether it sounds good or not. What do you think? First off, do you think Israel is going to accomplish the goal? It's a matter of do you think? I don't expect you to have the answer, but do
Sure.
you think Israel's going to go through with it, or do you think they're going to cave to pressure?
Did you see what happened like an hour and a half ago with
No.
the right before this podcast,
Hmm.
the three big news channels in Israel all publicly announced that there was an acceptance to a deal between Hamas and Israel for the three-stage exchange over the course of 120 days. I think I saw it briefly, but essentially it was the beginning of the agreement to a deal for a prisoner hostage exchange, which would result in a ceasefire. The agreement was between Hamas and Egypt. Israel was not a part of this agreement. Why is this a very, very big issue? This is just like an hour and a half old. Why is this a very, very big issue? Hamas did this intentionally because what's going to happen in Israel right now, it is publicized that we accepted the terms. Qatar has accepted the terms of Hamas, should I say, accepted the terms of this ceasefire deal that's being sent to Qatar for approval. But Israel had no part in this proposal. And what Hamas is going to do, which I'm sure they probably already have done at this point, they're going to throw that into the world, mostly overseas, to say, we accepted a ceasefire deal, but Israel declined it. The ceasefire deal was between Egypt and Hamas, but Israel declined it again. Hamas is going to say, we want to end this war. We've been wanting to end this war. Look at all these deals over the past 5 months that Israel keeps declining. That's not what's happening. You and I both know that's not what's happening. What this is going to do, though, is it's going to create more pressure on Israel because the script is now flipped again. It's going to buy more time for Hamas to keep the hostages. It's going to buy them more time for the US to now apply pressure on Israel to still not go into Rafah. Why? Because now the US is going to think that Israel's the people who declined the ceasefire deal. It's disgusting of how flawless of a machine Hamas is built because they have their feet up right now. So this is a very big deal in this stage of the war because yesterday we saw from Rafah, Hamas fire rockets at the Kerem Shalom crossing, where the humanitarian aid is being sent through and where Palestinian refugee humanitarian zones are literally next to that entrance where innocent civilians are living because they have been shifted from the north to the south. But Hamas sent rockets at that crossing, not only causing damage to those humanitarian zones, killing 3 IDF soldiers. So the IDF woke up today, and what did they do? They dropped pamphlets over the Gaza Strip saying, over Rafah, saying, you guys should start leaving because we're about to come in here. Then tonight, it is announced that there was an agreement to a ceasefire deal. The military pressure from Israel by dropping those pamphlets on top of Gaza woke Hamas up like, oh, shit, they're about to come in here. Because last night they killed 3 of our soldiers. They also proved to the world, number one, how much they don't want to be at peace with Israel. They just shot rockets from Rafah into the Kerem Shalom crossing. And 2, how much Hamas really doesn't care about its own people.
Right.
So those 2 things on top of the military pressure. And by the way, I'm not a political, like, I don't have political agendas with this, but like, it's very easy to point fingers at Bibi and say that like, we're here because of Bibi. Well, Bibi has been saying this whole time that the thing that we need the most in order to get what we want is military pressure. And what happened today? We dropped pamphlets we applied military pressure by saying we're about to come into Rafah, and it caused them for their hairs to stand up and then do this. But what they did is they toyed with Israel by getting an agreement with Egypt and framing it like Israel accepted it. And now Israel has to, I think they already did. They already publicly said that we don't agree to these terms. And it is going to really cause turmoil here. Sorry, I
Mhm.
wanted to provide that context because this is really, really recent. But what do I think? Someone on my live stream asked me this last night. My answer is pretty much the same. On one hand, we have 100 plus hostages that are the most valuable thing to Israel. It's the treasure. You know that. Every single one of them. We also know that after 213 days, the condition of many of them is a condition that probably none of us really want to know about right now. It is really bad to think about where they are, how they are, and how many are they.
Yeah.
On the other hand, It's day 213. We have terrorists in the south where Gaza is, Hamas. We have terrorists in the north, Hezbollah in the north. We have issues with Iran, we have issues with Yemen, and now we have an entire global issue of pressure against Israel and seeing what's unfolding in America and Europe, you name it. Day 213.
Mm-hmm.
From a war standpoint, hostages aren't here. Israel's fighting with one another. Every Saturday night, we have awful, awful, awful protests against the government. We have people fighting with one another, Israelis fighting with one another. And then that gets put out into the public, and then enemies see that and they laugh and they love it. And then they show that to the world and say, look, they can't even figure it out amongst themselves. So we have that. We have pressure against the government from two angles. One, he feels the need that he needs to focus on his political campaign to get reelected. And two, is the pressure from everyone inside of Israel saying, you're the reason this war is happening.
Mm-hmm.
So we have angry people inside of Israel. Day 213. I keep saying 213. The point I'm trying to make is that what Israel needs to do, and I alluded to this earlier when I said I think that we're too soft. Forget the 99% interception of the missiles and the drones from Iran. We had help from France, we had help from Jordan, we had help from other countries, the US. We showed the world that we can defend. What we need to show the world, because people need to stop. We need to go into Rafah and we need to finish the job. That's it. We need to go into Rafah. We need to do the best that we can to the best of our ability with our intelligence to, yes, get as many hostages as we can. But the longer that we wait is more time for those hostages not to be alive. And the longer that we wait is more time that we're showing the world that we can't pull the trigger on anything. And that 213 turns into 300 and turns into a year. And now we're a year of what? That's personally what I think, but I'm not, one, a military expert, and two, I'm not a politician. And I know that there are, and you know this too, 500 other variables that go into that question that you asked me. But so who am I to say that that's the right decision? But from the outside looking in, are we winning? I don't know. I don't think so. I don't think, and what bothers me the most is after October 7th, we all said to one another here in Israel, there's no way we are not coming out on top after this. There's no way that you can't rebound and bounce back stronger, better, more fierce after something like that. It is the equivalent of after the Holocaust happening and then not creating the establishment of the state of Israel. No, we bounced back and we made a fucking state. Sorry for my language. Here we have to bounce. Here we have to bounce back. Oh, I can swear. I've been good. Here we have to bounce back and make a statement. We do. I'm sorry. And if it comes at and the last thing I want to say, and sorry, this is a long-winded answer, is let's take a look at the attention span of civilization from October 7th. October 7th, the first 2-3 weeks, world, every single newspaper, every media outlet, October 7th, Palestine, Israel, Jews, war. We all know that that was the only thing in the algorithm for like 3 weeks. And then it started to die down. And then this thing at Shifa Hospital happened where the world said that Israel bombed Shifa Hospital, but then we were able to shift it from the New York Times and make them change the headline and actually show it was a misfire. 4, 5, 6 days of talk, boom, chatter. Oh, first amount of hostages released back into Israel, boom. We are on this cycle of short-term memory. So I personally, knowing that that's the psyche of where we are today in civilization, yes, bite the bullet for 2 weeks of awful, awful, awful propaganda in the world. The world will hate us even more than they already do. Go into Rafah, bite the bullet, deal with the propaganda, and then 2 weeks will go by and we'll be better. That's what I think. Maybe I'm wrong. That's my opinion.
So, okay, so I happen to be in agreement with you. Here's the thing, right? I put myself, I can't actually do it, but doing my best to do it with being nowhere near being able to understand the pain is understanding that the parents and family members of these hostages are just destroyed. They're just broken. I can't even imagine the pain that they're going through.
I know many of them personally. I know many of them personally.
I don't, and I feel so bad for them, and I obviously feel even worse for the actual people that are held hostage. And there's nothing I want more than to have them returned.
Me too.
And but as much as that needs to be a top priority, we can't forfeit the war because we're putting so many future Israelis in danger. If I had a family member that was held hostage, I'm sure that I would be screaming and crying and carrying on and doing everything I could to push the government to save them. I also understand that the government has an incredibly difficult job because saving those hostages could put the war in jeopardy. And if Hamas is still in power, yes, maybe we save those hostages, but if we save the hostages and then as a result of saving the hostages, we can't continue the war effort and Hamas could still cause damage, we put ourselves in a very difficult position as not only a country, but as a people, as Jews, not even just in Israel, but all over the world. We're sending a message that terrorist groups can now take our people hostage and they effectively will win. That as long as they take people, as long as they kidnap our people, they will be victorious. It's a very dangerous message. And that essentially means that we're not only willing to negotiate with terrorists, but that is our kryptonite. That's how they defeat us. And if they do that enough, that they can do that again, and if they do it again, they'll win. And eventually, they keep doing that. What happens? They can take land. They can. I mean, what happens then? So it's horrible because saying this makes it seem like I don't care about the hostage. I don't think it makes it seem that way, but maybe people can interpret it that way. That's the farthest thing from the truth. We need to put so much pressure on the Palestinians. We need to put so much pressure on Hamas that they give it back because they don't want to deal with it. Honestly, man, you want to take 200 from the start over 200 Jewish people and hold them hostage. I mean, dude, they got to get hit hard. They have. It's the only way they're going to understand. Like it sucks, but this war has to go on. It has to. It has to. They have to go into Rafa. They have to. If people die, it is what it is. I'm saying, like, I want to say something that sounds nicer, Barak. I want to say something that sounds a lot more sweet and gentle. But if you or I if I had a family member kidnapped, not even a son or a daughter, if I had an uncle, an aunt, a grandmother, a grandson, a more distant relative, and someone came, say, God forbid that happened, and the U.S. government came to me and said, listen, we know where they are. But if we get them, we can't even guarantee their survival. But if we have a shot at getting them, we're going to have to kill the kidnapper's entire family and another 10,000 people. Is that something you're willing to try? I'm going to say it right here on camera, dude. Yes. Yes. I don't want innocent civilians to die. But if that's the only way, and the kidnappers, the family of the kidnappers support the kidnapping, I'm not going to say all of them. I don't know. I'm sure there are people that don't. But an overwhelming majority of the kidnappers' relatives, friends, and acquaintances support the kidnapper kidnapping my family. To hell with them, bro. To hell with them. I'm saying it, not taking it down, not editing it. It's going on YouTube. It's not, and people won't hear the nuance. People say, you murderer. No. Put yourself in the hostages and the family of the hostages' shoes. And if that was the only possible way to get them back, believe me, 99% of everybody listening to this podcast would do anything. They'd move mountains to get their family members back. You got to kill the kidnapper's family? Why aren't you doing it yet? It's so easy for people to talk shit. So easy.
You raised a few very important things that I wanted to hit on. I'm gonna reinforce them right now. Number one, everything that I said prior to what you just mentioned is from the perspective of somebody that is not the relative of a hostage. Okay. If I go to, and I know many of them personally, go to any of them right now and you listen to them, you know what? People in the public want to criticize all the people at Kikar Chatufim, Hostage Square, going there and protesting and shouting at the government. You know what? On one hand, yeah, bad PR, bad media. On the other hand, I understand, because if my brother was taken hostage on the 7th while I was sitting in my living room, and after I saw 2 of my other family members get mutilated, and I saw my brother get taken out, still today, as I'm talking to you, there is nothing else in life that I care more about than getting him back home. And if it comes at the expense of what you just said, yes, and yes. And for anyone to say that isn't what they would say, It's bullshit.
They're
So
lying.
they're
100%.
bullshit. It's bullshit. So that's why I say from the psyche of I would do the same thing. I was with the sister of a hostage, and her and her husband quit their jobs. They have like 3 kids, and they've spent the past 7 months unemployed, doing everything that they can to get him back home. I'd do the same thing. And I'm sure if you ask them right now, what are you willing to risk? They would say the same other thing, which is 10,000 of those other people who are the cousins and the neighbors and the friends. Just get him home. I don't care about. It's true. Number two, all of these encampment protesters. Okay. All of these encampment protesters in the United States. You want to know something?
Kidnap one of their relatives. Kidnap one of their relatives. See what happens.
Thank you. Thank you. You want to know what would happen if Hamas pulled up to their house in Pittsburgh right now and took their, you think that they're wearing a keffiyeh? You think they're wearing a mask? You think that they're shouting for bullshit? So that's why I get so, I'm like, you guys are baloney is what you are. Because until the devil comes knocking on your door, real silent, real silent. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I agree with you, man. Like first of all, everyone who watches the news in the general in the public, we know about, I don't know, 60% of the truth. A lot of it just isn't in our hands. Like, and I mean that the government hides a lot, not just in America, in Israel, everywhere in the world. We know that politics is pretty fishy. So there's a lot that we don't know. From what we do know, I stand by what I just said. I stand by with what you just said, which is like the psyche of somebody who wants their loved one back doesn't care about anything in the way, especially if it is the same blood of the people who just took that loved one home away. Like it doesn't, it's not even, especially when you look at the statistics of how well Israel, from a kill death ratio of how well they have executed this war, and most people will not see it that way, but war is ugly. Sorry. Got to get hostages home.
Yeah.
It's part of the deal. It's part of the deal.
We're dancing around this too much. Like, we're dancing around this way too much, dude. As Jews, we just.
But by the way, doesn't it what you just said?
I don't mean you. I don't mean you. You and I are dancing around this. I
No,
mean
no, 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 no. No, I know that. What I was gonna say was you saying that makes me also feel like when I say we're being too soft, it's the same fucking thing. We're dancing around something and we are getting toyed with right now, is what's happening. Hamas is on day 213. They're in Qatar with their feet kicked up. Hostages aren't home. Israel, especially what happened, what unfolded tonight's a huge deal. And I'm sure you're going to do your due diligence after this podcast and you'll look and see what happened. It's a big deal to see what's going to happen now with chess moves. And it's going to give Hamas the green light to buy themselves more time. Buy themselves more time. And then in 3 or 4 weeks, tell us that another 40 are dead.
Here's the fucking reality. If Israel went absolutely berserk and just killed tons of people in Gaza, it would be terrible. Meaning, it's not that I would want that. When I see videos of kids in the hospital, they're in bad shape. I feel bad for them, even if the kid grows up to be a Hamas terrorist. For now, he's a child. I hate to see it. I'll say it right now. I hate to see it. But from a war perspective, looking at the history of the world, think about all these shows people watch, Game of Thrones and Vikings, and all these shows where people get off on watching people pull out swords, right? These big, strong, hairy men just going into these villages and conquering everything, right? People love watching that. But when it comes to reality, they're like, oh, you can't do that. It's like, what did you think happened throughout history? How do you think that people would wage wars over one woman? People would wage wars over nothing, let alone an actual valid cause. So if Israel went and just killed 100,000 people, I guarantee you the hostages would have been back a long time. Now, of course, people are going to listen to this and go, are you suggesting that? I can't believe you would say that. It's like, well, now we're tiptoeing and we're listening to all these people chewing our ears off, and we're so scared of an international pressure. Look where it's gotten us. It's gotten us almost a year of fighting. We still haven't accomplished the goal. All these Gazans have died. All these Israelis have died. Where'd it get us? When you look at all these wars throughout history, some of them have been accomplished a lot faster. Yes, more people have died. Maybe you shouldn't have crossed the border into Israel on October 7th. That probably would have been a good idea. So now we're both in limbo. Both sides are in limbo. Palestinians are going to end up getting the short end of the stick here because they have in the past 75 years. What I'm going to say here is to kind of really zoom in on this, or to really speed up this whole conversation that you and I are having. The Palestinians and all of their supporters need to come to terms with the fact that this isn't a question of colonialism on the Jewish side. This isn't the French taking over Algeria. This isn't the French and the Spanish taking over Morocco. This isn't even the people who came to America taking over the Native Americans. This is a conversation of Jewish people coming back to land after 2,000 years, which is unprecedented, which hasn't happened in history. People aren't used to that. They aren't used to a people that have been oppressed, thrown around all over the world. We've actually successfully come back to the land we've been longing to come back to. Palestinians haven't come to terms with that. They're going to have to at some point, whether they like it or not. And the more they fight us, the less they're going to have. So at some point, and our stupidity is that we keep trying to make concessions. We keep trying to give land away, which is never going to work. And so at some point, they're going to have to come to terms with reality. And if they don't, we're going to be in this perpetual state of conflict. In my view, they have a few options. What really should happen is Jordan should become the Palestinian state, but that's highly unlikely to happen because that's what was supposed to be the case. That doesn't look to be a very likely thing because technically that was supposed to be the state. The Palestinians don't need two states. We have one, they can have one. If Jordan won't become the state, my view is that they can make Gaza the state. Maybe Egypt could give a little bit of the Sinai to them, make them happy, give them a little more land. They can have a coastal state and do what they can with it. They probably won't do that though, because they refuse to accept that. They want everything. So they're going to keep fighting a much stronger military, pulling all of this ridiculous nonsense in terms of committing these attacks that only make us angrier and more interested in justice and vengeance. They're fighting a first world military with nuclear weapons. They don't have the wherewithal to fight us, but because we are so merciful, I know it's crazy. Again, people are going to hear, so merciful, 30. It's like, yes, so merciful compared to what other countries would have done to you had you committed this. They would have obliterated them. Okay, but we're sitting here saying, just drop the leaflets and the knock on the roof, and wait, I don't know, the college campuses. It's like, dude, enough already. I'm sorry, like enough already. And then it's like, it's insane. And the reality is either create your state in Gaza, or we're going to have to keep fighting until until this 30,000 is a joke compared to what happens. I'm not, because we're the stronger side. So what I'm saying is if there ends up being a war till the death, if down the road in 20 years or in 5 years, there's a war where it's like, hey, we're going to fight each other until one of us is pretty much eradicated. Okay. That's probably what's going to be eventually. We're going to keep fighting. It's been 75 years. We're going to do this for another 100 years. This isn't going to work. We can't keep doing this. So it's like, we're clearly a lot stronger. As the weaker side, as the Palestinian side who's weaker, a lot of the Arab countries have given up on them. They've tried to eradicate us throughout all the major wars. They failed. Most of these Arab countries are done trying. They're like, forget about it already. All right, Jews, fine. You want to be in Israel? You want to have a country? All right. We don't. They might not like us, but they've accepted it because it's not worth it for them. The juice isn't worth the squeeze. So the Palestinians are still being used as pawns by Iran and their leaders to continue this fight that they can't win. And as Jews, we're also stupid because we keep giving in and essentially apologizing. So we're in this constant perpetual state of conflict. Create a state in Gaza, or it's going to end up a lot worse down the road. It's not going to get better. It's going to get worse. That's my take.
I don't have right now a concrete answer as to how I see this post-war. I really don't. I'll tell you what I think, though. People always want to say, what's the solution to the Middle Eastern conflict? There is none. The reframing of the sentence is, what's the best way to manage the Middle Eastern conflict? It's about managing it. There's never going to be a solution, in my opinion, after what happened on the 7th. There will never be a two-state solution. There will never be peace, ever. You ask all the people pre-October 7th, okay, maybe some people did feel like it was time, especially what was happening in the UAE, like let's explore this. That offer is gone. It's off the table. All of the people, Israelis who were in the middle, Many of them are just on one side now. There's a very small percentage of Israeli people inside of Israel that are like pro-peace, ceasefire, against Israel and the IDF. Okay, those people are irrelevant. They don't have any voice, any platform. So this doesn't come from a pessimistic place. I don't see a reality, at least while I'm alive, where after seeing what happened on the 7th and knowing the history between this region of the world, that this region ever does get to a point of, let's call it coexistence. Okay. There isn't coexistence ever in any situation, whether it's North or South Korea, whether it's Ukraine and Russia, whether it's Israel and enemy states, when there is a party involved who thrives off of violence, fear, and terror. That is their charter, that is their education, that's their blood, and that's what they endorse. If that is always going to be a thing, and not just from Hamas, that's what people in Hezbollah think, and that's what people in now the Houthi rebels think. It is just an ideology. We can go back to the ideology of Islamic jihadist, like the racist regime that they are.
Barak, it's all religious. It's deeply religious. Thank you. That's what.
Yeah. Deeply religious. The people who say like it's like the issues with Islam. I mean, when I was in high school, during my 4 years in high school and the 4 to 5 years after, one of my best friends was a very, very religious Muslim. I've spent time at his house. I've celebrated Ramadan with his family. He has spent time at my house, celebrated Hanukkah and Passover. He and I actually don't see the world the same when it comes to this discussion here. And we put those things to the side and we were able to have, I would say, a level of coexistence. He was my best friend. So to sit here and say that the problem is Islam, well, I never found Islam an issue with my relationship with him and what he thought of me as a Jew, ever. It was never even a thought for me. So that's one anecdote. I know that's it's a minority. I know it's
I had a really good friend, a Muslim friend in college from Morocco. I just think that if you're in America, you can put those differences away. But when you're in the Middle East, those problems become so prominent, it's very hard to separate them. And the truth is in America, you put, even if you're devoutly religious, you have a common goal of making money, having a white picket fence, and that's the end of it. You live in the Middle East, the problems are in your face. You can't ignore them. So as much as I hear what you're saying, I think it becomes a very different story when you're in the thick of it. And the truth is that when you look at, I'm not just blaming Islam for this, you can blame all religions here. Okay, you can even put blame on Judaism. I was talking to this rabbi because I keep bringing it up. His point is so good, it's so relevant. This Rabbi Manis Friedman, he's very big on social media. You might have heard of him, you might not have. But I had him on my podcast, and he was saying all of this really comes down to this simple premise: is that Muslims believe that Yishmael or Ismail or Ismail, however you want to pronounce his name, was the true inheritor of the land because he was the firstborn, and Jews believe that Sarah gave Isaac the inheritance. And so ultimately, the Muslims and the Jews are fighting on who the real inheritor is. And that's just really the bottom line, dude.
Mm.
That's just really the bottom line. If we're really calling a spade, and I always use that, I always say that, that's what it really is, man. That's
boils
really
down
what
to that. Boils down to that.
All the layers back. We were the inheritors. The Muslims are like, no, we're the new chosen people. There's, because why are this little group of people there that chosen? Nah, they're bad. They sinned a lot. That God gave the inheritance to us. We're the new chosen ones. So we deserve Israel. That's our land. And so we're fighting about an age-old argument on who really deserves the land. That's really what this is all about. And we're all dancing around it. There's a campfire, and we're all dancing around it, throwing stones at each other. And the truth is we're really just, when you look at it from an outside perspective, it's really dumb, but you can't ignore it because there are too many people who are deeply religious that believe it with every fiber of their being. And the reality, dude, is I think we're going to be in this perpetual state of war until either both sides can come to an agreement. The Palestinians are going to have to come to an agreement. And they're going to have to make a big compromise because they're never going to get all of this land. Mm-hmm. They're not going to get close to all of this land, and they're going to have to eventually accept it. And if they don't accept it, then it leaves us really not much of a choice, unfortunately. It's not what I want. It's not what I want. I would listen, man. I'd love to be friends with them and get along with them and eat with them and live lives with them. I would love to do that, but it's just not in the cards. Eh, and people talk about, oh, but like Germany reformed and all this. Yeah, Germany reformed after it was bombed to smithereens. A lot of these other countries reformed after they were, forget Japan, after they were bombed to hell. So is that what you're suggesting? Is that how we accomplish that? Maybe.
Mm.
Maybe they have to be bombed and killed so bad that they're like, all right, we have nothing left to fight for. Is that the suggestion? I don't want that to happen because you know what I'm saying?
I do. The thing I'll say that I keep saying to people is like, hey guys, like we saw what happened at the end of last time. Like, what are we on to now? Right? Like, what happened at the end of the 30s and 40s? Fucking 6 million of us were gone. Like, what's cooking right now? What's cooking? What's the intention of some of these encampment people who have been found with like items to use for violence and incite against Jewish people? What is the intention of giving a 6 and 7 year old in Gaza a toy gun? Where is this going? Where is this going? We've seen something like this happen historically. So I think like that's why I keep saying, in my opinion, to make a statement enough that creates an actual shift in what's going on, Israel needs to be the initiator. That's what I think. Israel
Mhm.
hasn't been the initiator. We were not the initiator on October 7th yet. Many people think we were. So Israel needs to initiate. They need to respond, and because I'll tell you this much. This is what I think. Let's say let's say Israel goes into Rafah, okay? And through that process, all of the hostages get killed. All of them. They're all there. You know what Hamas is going to say? They won the war. That's what they're going to say.
Mhm.
The whole world's going to say it too. Israel killed 133 of its own people.
Yep.
In many of the situations that we find ourselves in, I find that Israel is typically in a lose-lose. And
Yeah.
usually in a lose-lose no matter what, from on the ground standpoint or a media standpoint. Um, the reality of where we are right now has led me to the only thought of, as this continues to get worse, because it is getting worse, the lives of the hostages are getting worse, the global domestic terrorism across the world is getting worse, inside of Israel is getting worse. We need to make a statement. And if we don't make a statement, we lose the war on every other front. I'm also going to say that like 2 months ago, when the only headline in the news was 30,000 people, 32,000 people, genocide, ICJ, South Africa. You don't really see these numbers thrown out too much anymore. It goes back to what I was saying about short-term memory. Yeah, Israel should go in and, like you said, if it comes at the expense of 10,000 of people, do it. Do it.
Mhm.
Because in 2 months, they won't be talking about it anymore.
You know what it is?
That's
Barak, it's a question that we have to ask ourselves as Jews is, do we care more about our image or our survival? Because the likelihood is we're probably going to have to choose. And so, I
they
think
care too much about both.
we care too much about our image because we just want to be liked by everybody because we've been hated so much. We want people to like us. But I look at it from an individualistic standpoint. You look at it as one person. When you try so hard to garner the love from people, you end up getting the opposite. But when you're very confident in who you are, yeah, you might have some enemies. I think anyone who's done anything significant in the world has had quite a lot of enemies. Jews have done quite a significant amount of wonderful things. The amount of hate we get compared to what we've given to the world is very, very, very inadequate. This is
Mhm.
just part of being a Jew. I'm not saying that our shit doesn't stink at all. I'm not sitting here saying we're a perfect group of people, but this is what it is. So we either have to choose between our survival and our safety, or we have to choose being liked. We've already crossed that threshold. Millions and millions and millions and millions of people don't like us. We're already there. That doesn't mean that we should go and just indiscriminately do whatever we damn well please. We should try our best to fight a war that's fair, that's just, that you know we accomplish the goal with as few casualties as we can. That's a goal that we should try our best to do. But we should not put protecting Palestinian civilian lives before our own lives. We should put our soldiers' lives before their lives, all of them. I'm sorry. Like I know that the people won't like to hear that. An Israeli soldier's life to me is more important than a Gazan civilian's life. Absolutely, an Israeli hostage life is more important than anyone else's life. But at the same time, and this is my view, of course, now someone on the other side would put Hamas's life before our lives. Fine, it's family first, right? All's fair in love and war. You're on the Palestinian side. You put the Gazan civilians' lives before my people's lives. Okay, fine. That fair game. But it's also fair game if war is waged and your people die through the intention of securing and saving my people's lives. This is just raw reality. I'm not again. A lot of what I'm saying is not digestible. It doesn't sound palatable,
Mm-hmm.
but it's super raw and super real.
Mm-hmm. I understand
A
all
lot
of it.
Say again.
I understand all of it.
Yeah, like you can understand it, and we're on the same page here. A lot of people, even on the Jewish side, I think most people listening to this that are pro-Israel can hear this, but I think a lot of people on the other side, or people in the middle that aren't sure, they're not going to hear the nuance in it. They're just going to hear me going off and saying what I'm saying.
Sure.
Oh, I can't believe it. It's so horrible. If you can maybe listen to our episode together a few times and try to hear the nuance in what I'm saying, and hopefully you can understand it. I think the
Mm-hmm.
best thing that I brought up is trying to imagine that your child or family member was kidnapped. If anyone
Correct.
can contextualize that or conceptualize that, they'll have a much easier time understanding what I'm saying.
Correct. Correct. It's money. It's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, bro, like we have to put less of a priority on being like, dude. At the end of the day, okay, so if we do everything we can to protect the hostages and protect Israel, and in doing so, we endanger the lives of Jews around the world, it's worth it to me. Worst case scenario, our lives become in danger in America and Europe. We have a country to go to, bro. We
Right.
didn't have that before. Our lives
Right.
were in danger before Israel. We had
Right.
times of peace, we had times of freedom, sure, but it always ended the same way. So if we have to, we should, as Jews, always put the Israeli state as a priority because that's our only safe haven.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to, as much as I love America, it's not that I don't love America. I can't put America first because history has shown me that any country I've been living in, any country we've lived in, has eventually hurt us and kicked us out. So it's
Mm-hmm.
not that I don't love America, it's that I have to put the country that I know is the safest place for me,
Mm-hmm.
inevitably. Florida right now might be safer for me as a Jew. Right now, today, on May 6th, might be safer. But in the
Mm-hmm.
long haul, down the road, I'm throwing darts at the wall. It could become a lot worse because
Good point.
there's no military that I can guarantee my protection. I
Mm.
can't guarantee that the American military is going to protect me as a Jew. I
It's
can
true.
guarantee that the Israeli military is going to protect me as a Jew. It's a
Yeah.
very different story.
Yeah. It's a very different
Yeah,
story. And I've also always been saying that Israel is the only place in the world where after a war starts, it ends up being the safest place to be. It is. It is.
100%. Even if they're,
It,
yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
I was gonna say like, and I left on the 12th, but I left because this was a phenomenon that nobody here had ever gone through before. But when I went back to the States, I even felt less safe there. I had to hide my Judaism from wearing Star of David, from wearing Hebrew on my shirt, for speaking in Hebrew, and I really felt it there. Coming back here, like, wow, man, yeah, put me in a shelter. I'm cool with that. Put me
Yeah,
outside where there are IDF shoulders. I'm cool with that. Like, put me outside where there's drones above me. I'm cool with that. I'm very
mhm.
cool with that. I'm not cool with being a Jewish student at Harvard or Columbia. No, definitely not cool with that. So, um, you what you said is very true, which is at the end of the day, we do need to protect Israel, the state of Israel, our safe haven, as priority number one forever and always. Because without it, then all of the Jews right now in the diaspora, they have no chance. We're done. There is no
No,
Jew. There's no
yeah,
race.
yeah.
Yeah.
So it'll be over. Yeah, because people like to say on the other side, like, oh, if you didn't create Israel, you would have been, at peace and yada yada. It's like, do you not read any history books? Like, do you not understand how things have been? Don't you understand why we created it? We can't get away from it. I'm saying we're Jews. It's a side effect. You take a medication to take a migraine away, there are side effects. You take a medication, that's not even a good example. You take a strong medication because you have a serious uh, chronic disease or whatever it is. So you take a medication for it. It may help the disease, but you still have some side effects. You want to be Jewish, whether you chose it or not. These are the side effects, whether you like it or not.
Yeah,
This is what
yeah,
goes along with it. Fucking
Yeah,
Sunday, right?
yeah.
We got the noses. We got whatever the early fucking Tay-Sex. If you're Ashkenazi, we have some bullshit that we had to deal with. All right. And part of that shit is a lot of people don't like us. It is what it is.
That's
It's part of the
classic.
game.
Yeah.
It's still pretty dope. I like being a Heeb, you know? So yeah, man, this is some did you have any finishing thoughts? I feel like we got to a great this was a great episode, man. I enjoyed it a
Yeah.
lot.
No, this was great. My finishing thoughts are, wow, I mean, I talk about this every day. So my thoughts for right now are, um I just, what you just said about the side effects that come with being a Jew, I've alluded to that lately, which is like, if you choose to speak up about this and you choose to put your Judaism first, putting Israel first, you can never turn around, break your neck, and look back. You cannot. There's no turning back. There's none. Every time we have somebody, did you freeze? I don't think you froze.
Okay, yeah, you good.
I think I
Wait, hold
lost
on.
you.
No, we're here. I think it's good. Can you see me?
Hello.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Okay, now I can. Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. I can cut it out. Okay, so you're saying you can never look back.
Yeah. My finishing thoughts are that at the end of the day, whatever conversation you and I have with somebody who's in the middle on the up, as as Jewish people, we are always the underdog. We will never be the majority. We will always be a minority. We will always, if this is the starting point, the enemies, people who don't agree with us, they're always 5 steps ahead. There's more people who agree with them. There's more people who hate us. We are always having to prove a point. Israel's always having to prove a point. Israel's always trying to debunk. We are always trying to show why that's not true. That split here, that difference is just the part about being a Jew. It is the side effect of being a Jew.
Isn't that crazy? Because all these other wars are going on in the world. You don't see all these people having to explain themselves. We do so much. We're like, but we should exist, right? And they're like, no, fuck you. We're like, come on, can't we just have a country and like I don't know, you know what I'm saying? Like it's really small. Can't we? No, you can't. Fucking die already. Like,
Just
but
like
but
that.
we should because people hated us a lot. We should have a land now. Isn't that fair? No, fuck you, Jew. We're like,
Fuck you.
but
Yeah.
we go back to where you came from. Yeah, but we're not. But they said we don't belong there. So like, where do we go? But you can't be in Israel either. Oh, so should we? Can we live? Should we like create an island or something? No, you can't live on the island either. It belongs to you. Can we go to the moon? I don't know, man. I don't think the moon would be too happy about that. I don't know. I guess I don't know what to tell you.
That last clip is Jew. That's Jew.
So good.
That last clip is Jew. What is it? What is a Jew? That
Right? But like
really.
look at all the shit we gave you guys, like self
Did I lose you
uh,
again?
yeah, yeah, no, it's fine. So I was saying like,
I
what
think
about
Hamas is hacking our podcast right now.
could very well be. But I was saying like as I was saying joking, like, what about like all the cool stuff we've invented? Like, yeah, well, I mean, we'll take it, but like, fuck you, you know? We'll fucking hate you with the technology you created. Like we'll shit
Right.
on you with the technology that you created that we wouldn't have now, which is like the funniest shit. Yeah. We'll
Everything,
actually
man.
drive to the rallies. We'll drive to the rallies to shit on you with the technology that helped you
That you
help
gave us.
us. We'll heal in the hospital and then go shit on you when we're healed with the medicine that we get.
With the medicine. Oh my God. See, you and I laugh like this, but the people who we're talking about, these are the ones we're dealing with. The ones who don't understand. They don't understand. It's the same group of people I told you about at the beginning of this podcast, bro, which is why we laugh, because of how pathetic and sad this is it. This is it. We are talking about people that it doesn't matter how smart and wise you and I are, or tall, or Rudy Rahman. None of our words mean anything to these people. Zero. It's worthless. And that demographic will always be the leading majority for the world to speak on behalf of the people who really fucking hate us. So
yeah, it's just a bunch of stupid people getting together. It's like, it's just what it comes down to. That's why the Jews have been more or less the best comedians. Like some of the best comedians in the world, because we've learned that we might as well just laugh about it, because no matter how much we try, it just doesn't seem to.
Yeah.
And there are people that we get through to. Listen, we have to also acknowledge there are still a lot of people that understand us. They're out there. I have friends that aren't Jewish. They get it, but yeah, they're just too busy working.
They're just too busy to listen. That's right. Yeah.
I'm saying they have jobs, so like they don't have time to like go out in the streets really, But yes, sir. All right, Barak Swartz. It has been a absolute pleasure, dude. If you have any more thoughts you wanted to share, you want to mention, this is your opportunity to mention anywhere people can follow you, support you, send you money, anything of the sort. I want to give you that floor.
Sure. My YouTube channel is Other Barak. I'm on YouTube every single day. I'm putting up videos 2 to 3 times a week. I'm in the community tab every day. I'm live streaming 3 times a week, and I'm building a really cool community there, which has now transformed into a Patreon, where I'm able to really give behind the scenes access to people to Israel. My whole tagline is making Israel accessible to you. And so that's what I do. And I would say on Discord too, which is a place where now I'm starting to really build a lot of rapport on a day-to-day basis. It's Other Barak on all those. On Instagram, I'm posting once a day, showing a lot of the sort of the quicker things. And I reply to all the comments. I reply to all the emails. This is what I do. Like, I've left everything else behind, and this is what I do. And all of the financial support and support to the projects and what I'm doing is, of course, needed for me to be able to continue to run these. And so anybody who's maybe asking themselves, how do they support Israel from afar, if it's not directly to the IDF or directly to Zakar, to Magen David Adom, I think people like myself and Tal, who still on month 7, this is what we do full time. Like, we wake up and we try to figure out ways to try and help change the narrative. And anyone who's willing to support that, of course, is always appreciated, or even just a follow and a subscribe means a lot too.
Awesome. Make sure to check out the channel, guys. Make sure to follow, subscribe, like, share, leave your comments. Okay, and make sure and combat some of the anti-Semitism comments. It'll be good for the algorithm.
Right back to Johnny Pants 559 in Idaho. Right back to
All right, dude. This has been an awesome episode, man. Thank you for coming. It really turned out fantastic. I'm really glad you came on. It was just a great discussion. So I hope to meet you in the near future. Hopefully, me and you and Tal can go and hang out. Maybe I'll make a trip to Israel soon. Maybe you'll come to the States, whatever the case is. Would love to meet you in person. Ladies and gents, it has been another episode of the Soothing Semantics podcast. Let me just verify this. I think this might be the 170th episode.
Wow.
Wow. It's gonna be 171, because I'm putting out 170 tomorrow. 171st episode of the Soothing Semantics podcast. Make sure to subscribe, like, share, leave your comments. Of course, real estate needs. Follow me at Rafi the Realtor and sign up for my weekly newsletter. It has been an absolute pleasure. Until next time.